Hi everyone, my name is Degale Cooper, and I am the original Hub Home provider for the Mockingbird family. I started back in 2004 with my partner Lisa Karskadin, and we were honored at that time to take on this opportunity to be the Hub Home family for what was then the beginning of the Mockingbird family. Coming in this room where I am today and hearing that I was going to be meeting with Fresno County, Annette and Monica, I was like, oh my gosh, I am so excited. They have carried this forward. You know, Mockingbird Family in Fresno County and the work that you both are doing, it just makes my heart, just kind of beat a little faster.
What I think was really important to Degale is just that your passion for this, it was contagious. It was clear that you were invested in us just as we were invested in the program.
Through this process of bringing Mockingbird Family was our way of showing families that, look, you can trust this because this model makes sense. It brings families together. It brings communities together.
It's just amazing the support that we have and the love that we have within our constellation families. Our children have bonded, our families have bonded, and even the birth families have now bonded with the constellation, and it's just amazing what the reward we're getting right now. I think what we've been doing is just still continuing to be very supportive, and I think what the youth in our constellation and our families have seen is that when they think they have to challenge something difficult all alone, there's a family that does show up, a family that does answer the phone, a family that does, make that trip to bring, assurance that they aren't alone, that we're in it together.
That is so great. It's this natural inclination to want to come together as a community and support each other.
And as a return, you keep the retention of your foster parents because they have that support. They not only have to call the social worker for assistance, but they can call now the constellation for assistance, right? And don't feel like they're not being heard or their needs not being met.
Also on that survey, we noticed that the society also brought about retention of our youth. At the time, a lot of our youth were moving from home to home in placements, being very unstable. With the Mockingbird Society, it shows that our youth are stable. They are staying in the placements longer. And that was a big thing because our children, when they move around so much from home to home, they lose connection. And with the society, with the model, they stay and they build on that connection and they're stronger. The foundation is more solid for them. It shows that their grades in school have improved. It shows that the behaviors have improved. It shows that even the relationships and them able to speak out and advocate for themselves, all these things have improved.
And in my opinion, I know child welfare, it evolves, right? And this model right here is a model that child welfare in general actually should systematically be implementing, where families come together, because one of the toughest jobs is parenting, right? And parenting a child who's experienced trauma and abuse is difficult. And to be isolated in an island all by yourself, that in itself could be daunting and taxing and difficult, but to bring in others who have maybe similar experience from you and you can gain from their experience or just from their shoulder to lean on or, their ears, I think that is just critical. And then bringing in or looping in the families and saying it's okay for the resource parents to have this relationship with the biological parent. because fostering should not only just be fostering or nurturing just the child comes with different luggage, and those luggages are the people that's important to them. And oftentimes when children do come into care, those relationships, they get cut off, right? But in this model supports it. And because it has so many eyes on it, you're less likely to see that abuse or that neglect, right? What you're more likely to see is that positive support.
Annette, you mentioned something very, very important, and I think that all of the folks that hear about the Mockingbird family need to know, and it is that connection to young people's birth families. And a lot of times systems try to tear kids away from the families that weren't able to support them in that moment for whatever that reason is. But one thing that Monica, and I know is that these kids need all of their family, no matter what condition they come in. And for the Mockingbird family and the work that you're doing, when you can draw those birth families in and provide them the support and the guidance and the love as well, that makes that child's life even richer. They don't have to choose. They should never have to choose. But they can be in a safe place and know that I have my constellation, I have my foster parent, I have my hub home provider, but I also have my birth family, my mommy and my daddy, whoever was my birth family, to be there as well. And that's a beautiful thing. Back in 2004, what we knew in the community then is that a lot of our young children that were in foster care were, Black and brown youth. And a lot of those kids had to go into communities that were unfamiliar to them. And what we knew about what the model's vision was at that time was that we wanted to keep kids in their communities of origin. We wanted those young kids, those Black and brown kids, all kids, to be able to stay connected to the schools that they were already attending, to be, connected to the same parks and, healthcare professionals, and not have to move out of their communities. We wanted Mockingbird Family to be, a constellation with a hub home provider where children could come together and have other families who look like them and had similar experiences as them, and could be part of something more than what they were and feel safe and connected. So Monica, how has cultural relevancy played in your constellation?
Yes, it's played a big part because we've noticed also that when placing children, they're taking a little more diligent effort to place the youth in the zip code where they are from, so they can try and stay in the same home school and also with the same cultural background.
We are expanding, as Monica mentioned, we're having a bilingual model. So we're excited about expanding it to another vulnerable population that we see that lacks a lot of resources, right? And we want to support them in their environment, because many times when you live in a rural area, you're limited with the resources that you have, right? So it's going to be equally as important to provide that support to them as well.
The Mockingbird family has such huge potential to bring all communities together like this, especially for, our kids who are, BIPOC kids that are living with maybe constellation or foster families who are not the same race or ethnicity as them. A lot of times in a constellation, you can ensure that that constellation community looks like those kids who are being served in that constellation. As service providers, as social workers, does having a constellation help you in your role? Does it help you to serve kids and families better to have a constellation?
The one aspect that I see it definitely helping with the social worker, right? If it reduced the number of placement changes, if it increased stability, it takes some of the additional supports that a caregiver may need that they rely upon the social worker, it now places that on the constellation. So that frees up the social workers time to be able to, support other children who may require more time from that particular case manager. So I can see that from that perspective.
And I too agree with that, because you find that with the hub and the experience that the hub and the constellation has, they tend to work things out themselves. It takes a lot of the responsibility off of the caseworkers, the social workers, so that the hub is able to do that.
It doesn't decrease their caseload, but it makes the work much easier.
There you go. You're absolutely right, because social workers have such a hard job in and of themselves. When the hub and the constellation, the resource families can come together and support the needs of each other, to support the needs of those kids and those foster families, so that the social worker can focus on other families, that's what makes a difference in the child welfare system.
I believe that this model is very important, and why our community should really care, because it truly makes a difference. It makes a difference in not only a child's life, but a family life, and then from a family, from the community, right? And as a result, just us in society, if we could make a change and a difference in a child's life, we could change the world. It really has an impact on the way we go about our day-to-day work, and making sure that children's needs are truly met and cared for in a loving, natural, normal way until they're able to go back home or even stay in a permanent environment with those whom they've created those relationships with.
I agree. I think that why I feel that we should be supported is because it takes us back to where it takes a village. And in the new times and days, it's hard. Our villages have been broken. And being part of the system, it's very difficult to maneuver. It's very difficult to understand. And so if you have someone in the village who has the knowledge and you're willing to share and teach and empower others, I think that's what I look forward to. I'm willing to teach, I'm willing to empower, and I'm willing to help someone else learn how important it is for a village to raise our children.
And one thing that I heard both you, Annette, and Monica say is that, this is about that village taking care of the children, but also taking care of each other. And so when you think about communities, and if you go into a community and you spread the Mockingbird family, you can heal a community with a model like this. If we're keeping kids in their communities of origin, if we're finding foster families in those very same communities, then we are affecting, a cure, really, that can really change the dynamic of a community and lead it down this path of healthfulness and helpfulness. That's a true community kind of intervention, right? Is to bring the people of the community together, its families, its individuals, and its children, and to center them in this model, and that we create the literal village through the Mockingbird family.
I agree. I think that we're all in this together, because if you fail, we all fail. If you have struggled, we all struggle. And if you succeed, we all succeed. And if it makes a difference to one family, to one child, that's one I'm happy with. But I think we should be supported, because the more support we get, the more children and families we can save.
As our saying goes, we want to work ourselves out of a job, right? And this model helps us to do that.
There's power in that. And what we need to do is be able to let other communities, other child welfare organizations know that. They need to know that the Mockingbird family can make that difference. It makes that difference with the support, not just of foster families, but of the system that supports and raises these children as well. And so we need to fund constellations. We need to make sure that foster families have all the resources they need so that they can take good care of the kids in that constellation. Our world is impacted hugely by a lot of systemic failures. Something as simple as Mockingbird Family, something as simple as bringing families together can make a huge difference in this world. And I know that each of you believe this. If you take good care of the people who are taking good care of the kids, then you have created magic. You have created Mockingbird Family.